So now we're going to move on to the mapping and location section, which is where we're going to cover apps, as well as basically just ArcGIS Online at its core. And we'll kick things off with ArcGIS Online in this section. Over the past few years, it's been pretty amazing to look at the growth of ArcGIS Online. Right now, we have over 6.7 million users who view over 1 billion maps per day. They have over 21 million items stored in ArcGIS Online, and there's currently 4,000 new users coming into ArcGIS Online every day. So with these stats in mind, updates to ArcGIS Online are really, really important. And we released a new version, or the latest release of ArcGIS Online was back in December. So to walk through some of the new features and functionality, I'm going to hand it over to Harry.
Yeah, so this demonstration we've broken up into several different categories. The first portion is going to be some of the what's new and then some tips and tricks with cartography. We're then going to look at tips and tricks on how to manage some content inside of ArcGIS Online. And then at the end, we're going to start to create data within ArcGIS Online. So as Madeline mentioned, we release almost every quarter new updates. And it's great. You just wake up in the morning and the updates are already installed. You don't have to manage them. So one of the new updates we have is with our search experience. If I type something like NYC, you'll notice I'm now given suggestions on the items as I type. This is one of those new enhancements. So let's click on NYC buildings. What it's going to do is bring me to the item description page. And here I can see that there's been some best practices performed because I have a title, I see this marked as authoritative, and there's some good descriptive information. So let's further explore this data set. So I'll go ahead and open this. And what you're going to notice is that I'm opening this up in a 3D scene viewer. 3D is built natively into ArcGIS Online, just like it's built natively into ArcGIS Pro. There's no special application that you need to go to. It's all built in right here. So these are the buildings in NYC that are done up in 3D. And we've made some other enhancements to the scene viewer with the December release. And they deal a lot with the cartography. So let's go ahead and style all these buildings based upon an attribute called the Energy Star score. It's a score given by the EPA. Basically, the more energy efficient the building, the higher the score. So let's change this from a blue to a green and flip the color amp so that green buildings are more energy efficient. One of the other things that we've added is the ability to create edges. So watch what happens when I just toggle this switch. You'll see that each of the buildings now have edges. And this is being drawn dynamically in the scene viewer. Nothing's being edited with the original data set. So now that we have the updated information, let's explore some of the other tools that we've added in the scene viewer. First of all, we've updated what the measure tool experience is like. So here, if I grab the measure, click on this building, and then see the height to the other building, you'll notice something very interesting. It's the exact same tool that we saw in Pro. So we're making sure that user experience is the same. One of the other tools that we've added is the slice tool. So here, I can click this tool, and I can begin to slice through buildings. Now let me adjust this to only slice through one building down here. And you're going to notice something interesting. When I slice through this building, I can see the interior walls of the building. This tool is built out of the box. Why is this so important? Because as Madeline said, 80% of our time is spent indoors, and we believe that mapping the indoors is going to be very big in the near future. So we're building tools out of the box to be able to help you with that indoor experience. Now, some of the other enhancements that we've made with the scene viewer at the December release is with how we share them. So I'll go ahead and save this as EPA scores, NYC buildings, yay, and save that. Now, if I want to share this out as a scene, I can do that by clicking the share button and creating a web app. We've added 2 additional web apps, the Simple Scene Viewer and the Scene with Inset Map. Now, I haven't forgotten about Web App Builder. Web App Builder has been able to support 3D for a while, so that's still there. But I want to highlight these 2 new apps. So I'll go ahead and select that. Now here's a tip I would like to give to you. When you're building your web apps, use the preview button first. That way you get to preview your data in the app, and if you don't like it, you close it. And you don't have additional items in your contents folder that you have to go and manage. So as you would assume, the simple app literally is simple. It turns layers on and off. One of the other apps that we've included is this Scene with Inset. And we're finding that this is becoming extremely popular, especially for any of you who manage subsurface data like sewer pipes or storm drain pipes. This is a great way to have non-GIS users begin to interact with 3D. The reason why is there's a 2D map that shows you the location of the camera angle. And as I grab this little arrow and move it, it'll update my 3D map as well. So it allows people to see both the 2D and the 3D view of their data. It's been very successful, especially in the utility space. So that was just a couple of the enhancements that we've had with the 3D scene viewer with the latest release of ArcGIS Online. So let's go back to the home page and search on some more data, because what we have been finding is that what we've been finding is people like to search from this home page for their data. So if I type in power plants, you'll see again it suggests information, and we'll look at this item. A couple of other interesting things. Yes, this is authoritative, it has good descriptions, but look at this terms of use. This data is actually managed and maintained by USpatial. It's the University of Minnesota's GIS group. It's not my data. I'm just using it inside of my ArcGIS Online account because I've registered this item. So this is one of those things that Jack talked about in the video where we start to share all those services together to make better, more informed decisions. So let's explore this data and look at some enhancements let's look at some enhancements on cartography that we've made in the last release. So what we're looking at here are power plants, and they've been symbolized based upon the type of power: hydro, solar, wind, and so forth. When we look at this information and we go ahead and change the style of it, you'll notice that what we're using here is what we call a firefly symbol. So if I take the hydro symbols and I bump this up something like 30, what you'll notice is that the point is non-transparent, but as you move further away from that point, the transparency increases. This firefly symbol works on both points, lines, and polygons. Now, it can be a little difficult to see this data with that topographic base map. So I would like to update this base map to have a darker base map. Now, many of you probably go to the base map picker and would go directly to the dark gray canvas. But I want to show you another way we can choose a base map. And that's by adding data and looking at the Living Atlas. So the Living Atlas has thousands and thousands of layers of data, but what we want to do is we want to filter this data to only show base maps. But I only want to see a specific type of base map called a vector tile. And I've explored these vector tiles in the past, and I know there's another one called Nova. And yes, I am a Chevy fan as well, so I like this base map. When I add that base map, not only is it a dark colored base map, but you'll notice a couple of other really interesting things. We have this futuristic Star Trek symbol that's overlaid on the base map. Also, as we begin to zoom in, you'll see that there's this fishnet going on as well. So this is one of those vector tile base maps that we're going to explore more here in a couple moments. Now, one of the other enhancements that we've added is the ability to cluster data on the fly. So again, we're looking at our PowerPoint data. Now, as I move the slider, we can see more or less clusters appear automatically. And one of the things that we've worked hard at is creating pop-ups on labels as well. So here, if I click on one, I'll see that there are 26 points that have been clustered, and the predominant field type is solar. So we built this pop-up with Arcade, and it's automatically done for you. You don't have to do it. So how many of you are using vector tile base maps? Can you raise your hand? All right, 2 of you, great. So I'm going to show the rest of you how you begin to edit and what these vector tile base maps are all about. So Esri publishes our vector tile base maps, and what we allow you to do is configure what they look like. You get to change the symbology. In order to do that, we've created a special application for you called the ArcGIS Vector Tile Style Editor. And if you like to use this app, it's on our developers.arcgis.com site. So let's go ahead and get started. So I want to choose one of our creative base maps, and we have their modern antique, mid-century. Again, I like the Nova. So I'll select that, and just right off the bat, I can change all the colors I want. So here, let's change the land from a dark color to more of a beige color. Done. Water, I like really bright blue, so I'll do that as well. And all these colors that I'm changing, when I save it, I'll be able to share this with others. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll call this a branded base map and save that. Now, one of the other things that we can update are the actual icons that are on here. So here is that Star Trek type of symbol that we saw earlier. So if I want to change this to have a very red color, I can apply that tint directly to that pattern and then see that on my map. Now it's all been updated in red. One of the other things, if we go to Redlands, California, the amount of detail that we include in these base maps is extreme. So if I just zoom in closely, what we'll see is now parcel data. When I click building footprint data, when I click on one of those building footprints, I can quickly change the color to make them more of a yellow. But look, I can change the building outlines, I can change the building labels. Even for roads, I can change the symbology for every road classification that we have. And again, this is being saved in my organization so that I can share it. For those of you who have not used the vector tiles yet, I highly recommend you take the time to just play around and customize these base maps for your own use. Change the colors and the symbology based upon whatever type of map you're making. It's really going to be a game changer with how we stylize our base maps. So now the next thing I want to talk about is actually content. So what we're looking at here is all the content in my ArcGIS Online account. And here's that branded base map that we just created. So I've been now working for Esri for 11 years, and I found some patterns. And I've realized that some people are not using best practices. And this is a great example of what I'm talking about. So in many of the places I go, the titles are not filled out. The thumbnails are the default one. Descriptions in terms of use and comments, like it needs to change. So I want to highlight a couple of the best practices for each of you. First, in the December release, we added this item information bar. Your goal in life is to get that bar as green as possible, okay? But there's a very specific way in which I would like you to do that. Click on the Learn More, and it's going to prioritize the things that you need to do to this item to make it more authoritative. The reason this is important is how we've created our search engine. It's going to look and prioritize its searching based upon what you have here. So simple. Click on Add Summary, and it brings you directly to that location. So this is the branded base map for my organization. Now, watch what happens to that green bar when I hit Save. It's moved up. So continue to do that until you get as much green on that bar as possible. Now, there's two other things that I would like to point out under the Settings dialog. And that is the Mark Authoritative button and the Delete Protection. I know how much time you spend editing and creating data, and any data that you have that's authoritative, please check that Mark Authoritative. That's going to help the non-GIS professionals and anybody else who's looking at your data feel more confident in this data set. Also, make sure you use the delete protection. There's nothing worse than having a beautiful item description and you accidentally delete it one day. So we've built that capability in here for you. So that was just some of the tips and tricks about these item details that I really would like you to spend the time to make more authoritative, because as WebGIS persists and grows, this becomes hugely important. So the last portion of this demonstration deals with content. So within ArcGIS Online, you can create your own content. You don't always have to start in ArcGIS Pro. To create content, you go to the Content tab, My Content, and you hit the Create button. Now you can create many different types of content, from tile layers, feature layers, apps, and so forth. We'll create the feature layer. Now for those of you that work in specific industries, for example, like the telecommunication industries, and you want to map out hazards such as like bad dogs, we have a template for you. We've already created that. But in many cases, your specific workflows will require your own feature layer that needs to be created. And to do that, we'll just build a layer. Let me go back in. And we'll go ahead and build a layer. Now I can build either lines, points, or polygons. Well, in this case, we'll build a point. And I'll create this new layer. I will call this cabins. And I'll accept the defaults and call this hiking cabins. And now this brand new layer is going to be created directly inside of my account. Wait for it. Done. Now, one of the things about this layer, though, is it's an empty layer. There's no data inside of it. But what we do have are attributes already. So here again, we see there's no data. But if I look at my fields, I have object ID, global ID, and so forth. Well, by using the add dialog, I can add fields directly to this new layer. So I can add the field name, and we'll keep it a string. But I'm going to uncheck this box, which means it's a required field. So it has to be filled out if I'm editing this data set. I'm also going to add another one called capacity. And instead of an integer, or instead of a string, this is going to be an integer. And finally, we'll add the last field, which is called material. And we'll go ahead and add that. So what we can see is now my 3 new fields have been added to the bottom. If I click on one like material, we can see this attributes about that particular field. But have you ever noticed this create list button on the right hand side? If I click that, I can begin to create a list. So for example, I call this wood, concrete, or something like others. Now, can somebody raise their hand and tell me, what am I creating right now? Yes, ma'am? Domains. Yes, I am creating domains. ArcGIS Online not only allows you to create data, but create domains on those different data sets. And what's your name? What is it? Pilar. Oh, wow, that's amazing. I'll tell you why afterwards. All right, Pilar, where do you work? All right, so you get the same option as everybody else. We have a book down here about imagery, or you can have a book from any one of the Esri Presses catalog, the imagery book. All right, so since you're in the middle, we'll wait until the end. You come on down together. But yes, thank you, Pilar. We are creating domains directly inside of ArcGIS Online. So now we have a new issue, though. I have created all these domains, but look, there's no data. I can refresh. There's no data inside of here. So how do I get existing data into my actual empty feature class? Or feature layer? Well, that's pretty straightforward. I'm going to bring this Excel spreadsheet in and append that data directly to my layer. So append data to layer, navigate to that spreadsheet, upload and continue. And now here's what's really awesome. I can match up the fields from my Excel spreadsheet to my feature layer that I just created inside of ArcGIS Online. I don't have a material type, that's fine. I'll go ahead and apply those updates anyway. And now what we'll see is all those features in that Excel spreadsheet will be appended directly to my hosted feature layer. And there they are, all 13. Now, one final thing I want to show you is on the Overview tab, with a single click, I can enable attachments. That's it. Now I can include pictures, documents, whatever I need to this particular layer. So let's go ahead and open this up. All right, so for all the geographers in the room, where is Mount Taranaki? Just shout it out, anybody. Right there. That is all. No one has ever said that in like 3 months.
That's good.
Who said that, by the way? Nice. Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. Who said New Zealand? Yes, it is. We are in New Zealand, actually. This is one of the national parks in the northern portion of New Zealand. Now, we are looking at hiking cabins, and I happen to know that they have recently built some new cabins in this particular area. So with a quick little click of the edit button, I can create this new point directly on that cabin. Now, the name, it's required. This is Sunset Cabin. The capacity is 10. Oops, it must be an integer, so I have to type in 10. And there's my domains on my pick list. This is concrete. And if I wanted to, I could choose a file and upload that. So what I hope you've seen is that we update ArcGIS Online every quarter, and some of the new enhancements include cartography as well as searching capabilities. But there's a lot of best practices that still need to be done, especially with the item details page of the items you've created. Also, don't forget, you can create data sets and manage the fields of those data sets directly inside of ArcGIS Online. You do not always have to start inside of ArcGIS Pro. So that concludes this portion of the demonstration, and I'll go ahead and pass it back to Madeline.
Thanks, Harry. So one of my favorite things about Harry's demo is the vector tile style editor. That is so fun to play with. If you do nothing else, like this afternoon, if you're looking for just like get the creative juices flowing, it's a really fun way to do so. I know the first time I got to go in there, I made like a bright pink base map just because. So I'm excited to see what kind of base maps you guys will make as well. All right, so we're going to dive into a few of the apps and some of the associated apps with ArcGIS Online. And the first one is ArcGIS Analytics for IoT, which is an upcoming ArcGIS Online app that allows you to take advantage of some of the spatial real-time and big data to truly gain new insights and start to take action. Again, maximizing your GIS in 2019. So it allows you to, I guess this is one of the few apps that does allow you to truly take advantage of that big data. So if you are working with big data, this will be released soon. So keep an eye out for that. Another new capability in ArcGIS Online is location tracking. This allows you to create a single service for storing and managing location tracks in the big data store. There's an accompanying mobile application called Tracker for ArcGIS that provides a simple schedule-driven tracking experience. And it also supports offline use, so it has a low battery consumption, so that way you don't have to worry about whether your device is going to work in the field. And then lastly, there's an accompanying web app that allows you to track views, display and manage users that are in the field, and kind of understand their location history, so you can kind of keep tabs on things while you're back in the office.